The bright flash caught everyone's attention as screens worldwide suddenly displayed the same image. A tall figure with pale blue skin and large, almond-shaped eyes looked directly at the camera. Humans everywhere froze, watching as the alien spoke in perfect, slightly mechanical English. "People of Earth, I am Ambassador Neri of the Terry Confederation. We have observed your civilization for many cycles, and now extend an invitation to join the galactic community. However, our laws require certain conditions. The mandatory union program must be implemented immediately. All eligible humans will enter a selection process for pairing with Terry citizens. This is non-negotiable." Dr. Suo Lee was eating dinner when the broadcast interrupted his quiet evening. As one of Earth's most respected xenobiologists, he immediately recognized the significance of what was happening. His phone rang seconds after the transmission ended. "Dr. Lee, this is the President's office. We need you in Washington. Now." 12 hours later, Suo stood before a room of ashen-faced world leaders. The Terry ship hovered above the United Nations building in New York, a silent reminder of their technological superiority. "What exactly do they want from us?" asked the French president, her voice betraying her fear. Suho cleared his throat. Based on their transmission and the data they provided, the Terry believe humans possess genetic traits their species needs. Their population is declining due to what appears to be limited genetic diversity, so they want to breed with us. The Chinese representative's disgust was evident. Their understanding of union is different from our concept of marriage, Suo explained. The process involves a neural connection that facilitates genetic exchange without necessarily requiring physical intimacy as we understand it. The room erupted in angry voices until the Secretary General banged her gavel. "Dr. Lee, what happens if we refuse?" Suho displayed the Terry message on the main screen. "They've made it clear. Earth will be quarantined from all galactic trade, technology, and protection. Several other advanced civilizations have already detected our planet. Without Terry protection, we would be vulnerable." In Seoul, Doyen Kang watched the news with growing anxiety. At 28, he fell squarely into the eligible category the government had just announced. His friend Jinwoo called in a panic. "Are they serious? A lottery? This can't be legal." Doyen stared at his registration notice. "What choice do we have? Did you see those ships?" The first Terry delegation landed 3 days later. They were not what anyone expected. Rather than fearsome warriors, they appeared almost fragile. Tall, slender beings with graceful movements and soft-spoken voices. Their leader, Ambassador Neri, addressed the United Nations General Assembly. "We understand your concerns. The Union program has successfully integrated 17 species into our confederation. Humans are unique. Your adaptability and neural patterns show remarkable potential. This is not conquest, but salvation, for both our peoples." Dr. Suo Lee was appointed to the International Oversight Committee, tasked with implementing the program while protecting human rights as much as possible. He met with Terry scientists to understand their technology and intentions. "Your species fears what it does not understand," said Terry scientist Lumi, her translucent fingers manipulating a holographic display of human and Terry DNA. "The neural bond enables genetic sharing without altering individual identity. It creates a bridge between minds." "Why must it be mandatory?" Suo asked. "Surely volunteers would be sufficient." Lumi's large eyes blinked slowly. Previous experiences with voluntary programs proved inadequate. The genetic diversity required needs wider participation. Protests erupted worldwide as the lottery system was established. In major cities, people marched with signs reading, "Humans are not property," and "Earth for Earthlings." Military forces surrounded Terry ships as protection against increasingly violent demonstrations. Mina Park watched the chaos from her apartment window in Busan. At 32, she was a marine biologist who had always been fascinated by the possibility of alien life. Unlike many of her friends, she felt a strange curiosity about the Terry. When her notification arrived, indicating she had been selected in the first round, she felt more wonder than fear. Her parents were devastated. "You can't go through with this," her mother wept. "We'll hide you. There must be resistance groups." "And then what?" Minna asked. "Live as a fugitive while Earth gets cut off from the galaxy. At least this way, I might learn something about them, about what's out there." Dr. Suho worked 18-hour days, trying to establish protocols that would protect the humans selected for the program. The Terry had agreed to his key demands. Participants would remain on Earth for the first year. No one under 21 would be selected, and each pairing would have the right to human medical and psychological supervision. "We're making the best of an impossible situation," he told his exhausted team. "The alternative is to face whatever else is out there alone." As the first selection day approached, Terry ships positioned themselves over major cities. They were beautiful in a strange way, curved vessels that seemed to shimmer between solid and liquid states. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's most advanced systems. Doyen received his final notice confirming his selection. He would meet his Terry counterpart in 3 days. The government-issued guide explained what to expect: an initial neural assessment, followed by a compatibility alignment, and then the beginning of the bonding process. That night, as he packed his permitted personal items, he watched a rare interview with a Terry representative on television. "What do you actually want from us?" the reporter asked bluntly. The Terry's voice was melodic and calm. "To survive together. Your species possesses remarkable neural pathways that allow adaptation and creativity our people have lost. In return, we offer knowledge of the universe beyond your imagination." Doyen turned off the television and looked at the night sky through his window. Somewhere up there, someone was preparing to meet him too, probably with their own fears and questions. Tomorrow would change everything. For him, for humanity, for Earth's place in a much larger cosmos than anyone had imagined. Doyen stood in line with hundreds of other selected humans at Seoul's Olympic Stadium, which had been transformed into a processing center overnight. The stadium's field was now filled with white cubicles and strange equipment brought by the Terry. He clutched his small bag of permitted personal items, a family photo, his watch, and a small notebook, wondering if he would ever return to his apartment. "Number 7294, called an automated voice. Doyen checked his wristband. That was him. He walked forward on legs that felt like water. At the registration desk, a human government worker and a Terry official processed his information. The Terry's slender fingers moved gracefully over a holographic interface, while its large eyes occasionally glanced at him with what seemed like curiosity. "Doyen Kang, age 28, systems engineer," the human official read from her tablet. "You've been assigned to Pairing Group Delta. Please proceed to Station 4 for preliminary assessment." The Terry spoke, its voice like gentle wind chimes. "Do not fear, Doyen Kang. Today begins a journey of mutual discovery." Doyen couldn't find his voice to respond. He simply nodded and moved toward Station 4, a large white dome in the center of the field. Inside, he joined a group of 20 humans sitting in chairs arranged in a circle. A tall female Terry stood in the center, her iridescent skin shifting colors as she moved. "I am Yuna, your group coordinator," she said. "Each of you will be paired with a Terry who matches your neural patterns. This is not random selection, but careful alignment." A man in his 30s raised his hand. "Will we have any choice in this process?" Yuna tilted her head. "The neural mapping determines optimal compatibility. Choice based on visual preference often leads to unsuccessful pairings." A woman next to Doyen whispered, "They're treating us like breeding stock." Her hands trembled as she spoke. One by one, they were called into smaller rooms for their neural assessment. When Doyen's turn came, he entered a chamber where a Terry technician waited beside what looked like a reclining chair surrounded by floating lights. "Please sit," the technician said. "I am Tahoe. This procedure is painless." Doyen lowered himself into the chair. "What exactly are you scanning for?" Neural pathways, thought patterns, emotional responses. Humans process information differently than Terry. We seek complementary patterns. Tahoe placed a thin circlet on Doyen's head. Please relax and think of a place that brings you peace. Doyen closed his eyes and thought of the mountain behind his childhood home. The lights around him pulsed and changed colors. After several minutes, the circlet was removed. Fascinating, Tahoe murmured. Your mind shows exceptional adaptive patterns. Hours later, all assessments complete, the humans were led to a large hall for the pairing announcements. Doyen's stomach churned with anxiety. On one side of the hall stood the humans, on the other, an equal number of Terry. They were strikingly different from one another, varying in height, skin tone, and the patterns that seemed to flow beneath their translucent skin. Ambassador Neri addressed the gathering. Today marks a historic moment for both our species. Each pairing represents hope for a shared future. When your names are called, please step forward to meet your counterpart. Names echoed through the hall, couples forming in the central space. Some humans looked terrified, others curious. The Terry maintained their composed demeanor, though Doyen noticed subtle color changes rippling across their skin as they met their human pairs. Doyen Kang and Suna of House Lenar. Doyen stepped forward on legs that felt like lead. From the Terry side emerged a slightly shorter than average figure. Her skin held a faint blue tint, with silver patterns flowing like water beneath the surface. Her large eyes were deep violet. They met in the center of the room. Suna extended her four-fingered hand in what she clearly understood was a human greeting gesture. I am Suna, she said. Her voice was higher than most of the other Terry he had heard. I study stellar formations and planetary development. Doyen took her hand. It was cool and smooth, like touching polished marble. I'm Doyen. I design computer systems. Data organization is not far from understanding stellar patterns, she replied. Both require seeing the connections between seemingly separate elements. A government official approached with forms. You'll both need to acknowledge the pairing agreement. You'll be housed in the designated adaptation complex for the initial bonding period. As they signed the documents, Doyen noticed that Suna's hand trembled slightly. It was the first sign of anything resembling nervousness he'd seen in any Terry. Are you okay? He asked quietly. Suna's skin rippled with a brief pattern of darker blue. This is also new for me, she admitted. I volunteered for the program to study Earth. I did not expect. She paused. I did not expect to feel uncertainty. The revelation struck Doyen. The Terry might be as nervous as the humans. He had imagined them as emotionless beings forcing this arrangement, but perhaps they too were individuals caught in decisions made by their leaders. At the adaptation complex, a newly constructed facility on the outskirts of Seoul, Doyen and Suna were shown to their shared living space. It contained separate sleeping areas, a common room, and what appeared to be some kind of meditation chamber filled with Terry technology. This will be your home during the initial bonding phase, their guide explained. You'll begin neural alignment sessions tomorrow. For now, use this time to become familiar with each other's basic habits and preferences. Left alone, they stood awkwardly in the common room. Suna broke the silence. Your neural patterns showed unusually high adaptability, she said. That is why we were matched. My species has lost such flexibility over generations of technological dependence. Doyen set his small bag down. So what happens now? What exactly is this bonding? Suna moved to the window, looking out at the night sky. A connection forms between our minds. It begins slowly, shared impressions, emotions. Later, more complex thoughts. It does not take away individuality, but creates a bridge between different ways of perceiving reality. And this will somehow help your species survive. She turned back to him, her violet eyes reflecting the room's light. And help yours thrive among the stars. There are wonders I wish to show you, Doyen Kang, if you are willing to see them. For the first time since the aliens arrived, Doyen felt something beyond fear, a flicker of curiosity about what might lie ahead. Doyen woke to find Suna standing motionless by the window, her skin pulsing with soft blue light as the morning sun touched her. She had explained that Terry absorbed solar energy directly through their skin, a form of supplemental nutrition that complemented their main diet of mineral-rich liquids. "You were watching me sleep," Doyen said, sitting up in bed. Suna turned, her large violet eyes blinking slowly. "Your breathing patterns change during sleep cycles. It's fascinating. Terry maintained consciousness during rest periods. You never sleep." Doyen reached for his clothes. "Not as humans understand it. We enter a meditative state where our bodies regenerate, but our minds remain partially aware." She tilted her head. "Is my observation uncomfortable for you? I am trying to understand human privacy concepts." This had become their daily pattern over the past week. Constant questions and explanations about behaviors each species took for granted. Simple actions like eating, bathing, or even sitting revealed profound differences in their biology and culture. In the small kitchen area, Doyen prepared rice and vegetables for breakfast, while Suna mixed her morning nutrients, a shimmering liquid that changed colors as she stirred it. "Why do humans prepare food so frequently?" she asked, watching him chop mushrooms. "The time investment seems inefficient." "Food is more than nutrition for us," Doyen explained. "It's cultural, social, sometimes even emotional. My mother taught me this recipe." Suna's skin rippled with yellow patterns, something Doyen had learned indicated curiosity. Family knowledge transmission through food preparation. Interesting adaptation. Their morning was interrupted by a notification on their shared communication panel. Dr. Suo Lee would be visiting their complex today to evaluate the initial adaptation phase. "The neural bridge activation begins tomorrow," Suna said, her skin shifting to deeper blue tones. "Are you concerned?" Doyen placed his empty bowl in the sink. "Wouldn't you be if someone was going to connect to your mind?" "It is not complete access to thoughts," she assured him. "More like sensing emotions, sharing impressions. The connection grows gradually." At the complex's central plaza, other human Terry pairs gathered for Dr. Lee's address. Doyen noticed the varying dynamics among the couples. Some humans stood close to their Terry counterparts, seemingly comfortable, while others maintained obvious distance. One woman was openly crying while her Terry partner looked on in apparent confusion. Dr. Lee arrived with a small team of human and Terry scientists. He looked tired, but spoke with calm authority. "We've been monitoring the adaptation process closely," he said. "Tomorrow marks an important milestone as the neural bridge technology activates. While some of you have expressed concerns, initial data from other pairing centers has been promising." A man near the front called out, "What happens if we refuse the neural connection?" A murmur ran through the human crowd. Dr. Lee sighed. The agreement with the Terry Confederation was clear. Participation in all phases is mandatory. However, he added quickly as tension rose, "We've negotiated provisions for gradual implementation and constant monitoring of human well-being." After the meeting, Doyen and Suna walked through the complex's garden area. Other pairs were doing the same, some in awkward silence, others in animated conversation. "Your scientist seems concerned about human resistance," Suna observed. "Wouldn't your people resist if our positions were reversed?" Doyen asked. Suna stopped walking, her skin pulsing with rapid patterns of blue and green. "This is why I volunteered. Most Terry view this program as logical necessity, but I believed we needed to understand the emotional impact." She hesitated. "I argued against making it mandatory." Doyen stared at her. "You opposed your government's approach. A minority of us did. We were overruled." Her voice softened. "My people are desperate, Doyen. Our birth rates have declined for generations. Our neural patterns have become too similar, too rigid. Without new genetic material and new thought patterns, we face extinction within 3 generations." That evening, they received visitors, Mina and her Terry partner, Jiho. The two pairs sat in Doyen's living area, sharing an awkward meal. "How are you adapting?" Minna asked Doyen while the Terry conversed in their musical language. "It's strange," he admitted. "Suna is so different, yet sometimes I forget she's not human. She gets curious about the smallest things, how I tie my shoes, why I hum while cooking." Minna nodded. Jiho is fascinated by marine biology. "We spent 3 hours discussing dolphin communication yesterday. He says my brain lights up differently when I talk about the ocean." Their conversation was interrupted when Jiho suddenly stood, his skin flashing with bright patterns. "Disagreement among our people," Suna explained, rising as well. "Excuse us." The two Terry moved to the corner of the room, speaking rapidly in their language. Their skin patterns pulsed in what appeared to be an agitated manner. "What's happening?" Doyen asked when Suna returned, her patterns still unsettled. "Different perspectives on approach," she said carefully. "Geo believes in minimal interference with human thought patterns during neural bridging. Others advocate for stronger guidance." "Guidance?" Minna's voice sharpened. "You mean control?" Geo rejoined them, his tall form seeming to vibrate with tension. "Not control. Protection. Some fear humans will resist the connection, causing damage to both parties." The evening ended with unresolved tension. After their guests departed, Doyen found Suna in her meditation chamber, surrounded by floating lights. "There's conflict among your people about this program," he said. It wasn't a question. Suna's patterns slowed, becoming more measured. "Yes, just as there is among humans. Some Terry believe we should have waited, developed trust before implementing the neural bridge." She looked directly at him. "I am one of them." "Then why participate?" "Because I believe understanding between our species is necessary, even if the path is flawed." She extended her hand, palm up. "Tomorrow, when the bridge activates, I promise to respect your mental autonomy. Will you trust me that far?" Doyen looked at her outstretched hand, remembering how alien it had seemed just days ago. Now he recognized the gesture for what it was, not just a mimicry of human custom, but a genuine request for trust. He placed his hand on hers. "I guess we'll find out tomorrow what it means to truly understand someone different." Her skin glowed with a warm amber light he hadn't seen before. Neither of them mentioned how their hands remained connected long after the conversation ended. The neural bridge activation chamber was smaller than Doyen had expected, a circular room with 2 reclined chairs facing each other. Soft blue light pulsed from the ceiling and walls, creating a calming atmosphere that did little to settle his nerves. "The process will begin gradually," explained the Terry technician as he placed a delicate circlet on Doyen's head. "You will first sense basic emotional states, then impressions, then more complex shared awareness." Suna sat across from him, already wearing her device, a more elaborate version that connected directly to the patterns flowing beneath her skin. Her violet eyes met his. "Remember to breathe normally," she said. "Resistance creates discomfort." The technician activated the system and left them alone. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Doyen was about to ask if the equipment was working when he felt it, a whisper of something not his own, a feeling of curiosity tinged with concern. "That's you," he whispered, startled. Suna nodded. "And I feel your anxiety. It tastes like." She searched for words, like metal and electricity. The sensation deepened. Doyen closed his eyes as impressions flickered through his mind. Crystalline structures reaching toward distant stars, the feel of solar energy on skin, a profound sense of loneliness that seemed to stretch across centuries. "These are your memories," he said, his voice trembling. "Some are ancestral," Suna replied. "Terry carry collective memory." As the connection strengthened, something unexpected happened. Beneath Suna's surface thoughts, Doyen sensed something hidden, a carefully guarded secret wrapped in layers of concern. When he instinctively reached toward it, Suna's skin flashed with alarm patterns. The technician rushed in, powering down the system. "First session complete," he announced. "How do you feel?" Doyen stared at Suna, whose skin had settled into an unfamiliar pattern, dark blue with jagged lines of silver. "What are you hiding?" he asked directly. The technician looked between them nervously. It is normal to sense privacy boundaries during initial contact. Those fade with. "Leave us," Suna commanded. When they were alone, she removed her circlet. The neural bridge revealed more than intended. "Your people are keeping secrets about this program," Doyen said. It wasn't a question. Suna's patterns shifted rapidly. "Yes, the public explanation is incomplete." Before she could elaborate, an alarm blared throughout the complex. The communication panel in the wall activated automatically, displaying Dr. Suoli's face. "All pairs return to your living quarters immediately. Security protocols have been activated due to an incident at the Western Complex." Back in their apartment, they watched news reports showing chaos at another pairing facility. A human resistance group had attacked, attempting to free the selected humans. Several people were injured, including two Terry. "Violence solves nothing," Suna said quietly. "It only strengthens the hardliners' position." "What position?" Doyen pressed. "What aren't you telling me?" Suna moved to the window, her back to him. "The neural bridge doesn't just facilitate understanding between our species. It changes both participants. Human neural pathways are remarkably adaptable. When connected to Terry minds, they unlock abilities dormant in both species." "What kind of abilities?" "Accelerated cognition, sensory enhancements. In some cases, limited forms of what humans might call telepathy." She turned to face him. "The Terry ruling council believes these changes will save our species from extinction while elevating humans to galactic citizenship, but they feared humans would refuse if they understood the permanent neural alterations involved." Doyen felt cold shock spread through him. "They're changing us without consent." "Yes." Suna's skin darkened with what he now recognized as shame. "I and others like me believe humans should have been told the truth and given real choice. We were overruled." The door chimed, interrupting them. Dr. Lee stood outside with two security officers. "Doyen, come. I need to speak with you privately." In Dr. Lee's office at the complex's administration building, Doyen found Mina already waiting. Dr. Lee locked the door before speaking. "What I'm about to share is classified," he said. "During routine neural scans, we've discovered something concerning. The changes to human brain function accelerate with each bridge session. By the fifth connection, the alterations become irreversible." Mina leaned forward. "What kind of alterations?" "New neural pathways forming, dormant areas activating. Essentially, the human brain begins to develop Terry-like capabilities while retaining human creativity and adaptability." "A hybrid consciousness," Doyen whispered. "Exactly. And there's more." Dr. Lee activated a secure display showing genetic analysis. "We've detected subtle changes at the cellular level. Nothing that alters human appearance, but enough to potentially affect future generations." Mina's eyes widened. "They're ensuring their genetic material continues even if their species doesn't." "The question is whether this was their plan all along," Dr. Lee said grimly, "and whether the changes pose any risk to humans long term." When Doyen returned to their apartment, he found Suna in her meditation chamber, surrounded by holographic data. "I've been waiting," she said without turning. "You met with your scientist about the neural alterations. How did you know?" "Our first bridge created a baseline connection. I can sense strong emotional states, even without active linking." She dismissed the holographs with a gesture. "What do you intend to do with this knowledge?" Doyen studied her. "That depends. Are you still keeping secrets from me?" Suna's skin rippled with complex patterns before settling into clear, steady blue. "No more secrets. The full truth is that my faction has been working to modify the neural bridge technology. We believe connection between our species is valuable, but not at the cost of deception or forced alteration." She approached him slowly. "I volunteered for this program to implement our modified bridge, one that facilitates understanding without permanent changes unless consciously chosen by both parties. And the other Terry don't know. Some suspect. It's why Jiho and I argued. She hesitated. Tomorrow, when we connect again, I can show you everything. The history of my people, why we need this alliance, and how we can make it truly equal. But you must decide if you're willing to trust me that far. Doyen thought of the impressions he'd already gathered from her mind, the sincerity, the concern, the genuine desire for understanding. If we expose the truth, what happens to the program? To Earth's place in your galactic community? Uncertainty, she admitted. But I believe truth offers the only sustainable path forward. Outside their window, lights from other apartments glowed in the darkness. In each one, a human and Terry were navigating the same complex reality, forced into intimacy by circumstance, discovering connection despite it. Show me everything tomorrow, Doyen said finally. Then we decide together what happens next. Suna's skin glowed with relief that required no translation. 6 months after the truth about the neural alterations became public, Doyen stood beside Suna on the observation platform of the newly constructed Interspecies Cooperation Center. Below them, humans and Terry moved freely among the gardens and research facilities, no longer separated into mandated pairs but working together by choice. The ambassador is arriving, Suna said, her skin shimmering with anticipation patterns. Are you nervous? Doyen adjusted the simple blue jacket that marked him as part of the Transition Council. A little. It's not every day you help rewrite an interplanetary agreement. The revelations from their second neural bridge session had changed everything. Suna had shown Doyen the complete history of her people, their rise to technological brilliance, followed by centuries of genetic decline as they prioritized intellectual purity over diversity. He had witnessed their desperate search for compatible species and their internal conflicts over how to approach humans. Most importantly, she had revealed the work of her faction, Terry scientists who had developed a modified neural bridge that allowed genuine connection without forced biological change. When Dr. Lee presented this evidence to world governments, the initial reaction had been fury. Protests erupted worldwide. Some demanded the immediate expulsion of all Terry from Earth. Others called for the rescue of humans already experiencing neural changes. It was Mina who had proposed the unexpected solution. Standing before the United Nations Emergency Council, with her Terry partner Jiho beside her, she had made a simple but powerful statement. Ask those of us who've experienced the bridge what we want. A global survey revealed something surprising. Many humans who had formed connections with their Terry partners wanted to maintain them. They described new ways of perceiving the world, expanded understanding, and genuine bonds that transcended species differences. I can feel colors now, one woman testified. Not just see them, feel them. And my partner understands music in ways I never could. Together, we're more than either of us was alone. The mandatory union program was dissolved. In its place, a voluntary partnership initiative emerged, with strict protocols for informed consent and reversible early-stage connections. The Terry Confederation had initially threatened sanctions, but when almost 40% of the original pairs chose to maintain their connections, they reluctantly accepted the new arrangement. The benefits were becoming too obvious to ignore. Now, 3 months later, Ambassador Neri was arriving to formalize the revised agreement. They're here, Suna said, pointing to the approaching delegation. Ambassador Neri looked different from when Doyen had first seen her on worldwide broadcasts. Her formerly rigid posture had softened, and her skin displayed more expressive patterns. Beside her walked Dr. Lee, now Earth's chief representative to the Confederation. The ceremony was brief but significant. The old agreement was formally dissolved. The new Interspecies Cooperation Treaty emphasized voluntary participation, transparent information sharing, and mutual benefit. In recognition of your role in revealing the truth and proposing a better path forward, Ambassador Neri announced, Doyen Kang and Suna of House Linner are appointed as joint directors of the Cultural Exchange Program. Later, in their shared apartment, no longer an assigned space, but one they had chosen together, Doyen and Suna celebrated with a small gathering of friends. Mina and Jiho brought traditional Korean dishes they had prepared together. Dr. Lee arrived with his research partner, a Terry mathematician named Haru. The first group of volunteer pairs begins advanced neural connection next week, Dr. Lee told them. We've already seen remarkable results in collaborative research. A human Terry team has developed a new approach to clean energy that neither species could have created alone. Jiho, who was now leading the modified bridge technology team, added, the key was allowing each mind to maintain its unique structure while creating pathways for shared cognition. Humans bring intuitive leaps. Terry contributes systematic analysis. After their guests departed, Doyen and Suna sat on their balcony watching the stars. Through their neural connection, maintained by choice through regular bridge sessions, he could sense her contentment mingled with lingering concern. You're worried about something, he said. Suna's skin rippled with thoughtful patterns. The Confederation Council is still divided. Some believe we compromise too much. Others see the voluntary program as the beginning of a new era of interspecies cooperation. And what do you believe? She turned to face him, her violet eyes reflecting starlight. I believe we found a better way forward than either of our species imagined possible. The mandatory program would have created resentment and resistance. This path creates genuine partnership. Doyen thought about how much had changed. 6 months ago, he had been selected against his will, terrified of having his mind invaded by an alien consciousness. Now, he couldn't imagine life without the expanded awareness that came from his connection with Suna. He understood colors beyond human perception, felt the energy of stars directly, and experienced the world through both human emotion and Terry precision simultaneously. Tomorrow, we begin interviewing volunteers for the Mars Habitat Project, he said. Humans and Terry working together to transform another planet. Suna's skin glowed warmly. Your people adapted remarkably quickly from fear to cooperation. That's our specialty, Doyen smiled. Adapting to the unexpected. Through their neural link, he shared a memory from childhood, standing on a mountain, watching stars appear one by one as darkness fell, wondering if anyone was looking back. Suna returned an ancestral memory of her people's first interstellar voyage, the wonder and terror of venturing into the unknown. The next morning, they stood before a room of volunteers, humans and Terry, who had chosen to form partnerships and work together on humanity's first serious interplanetary colony. The neural bridge is not about erasing differences, Doyen told them. It's about creating understanding across those differences. Suna continued seamlessly. Each connection is unique, shaped by the individuals involved. What you become together will be something neither of our species has seen before. A young human woman raised her hand. Aren't you worried about losing what makes us human? Doyen smiled, feeling Suna's thoughts harmonize with his own before he answered. Humanity isn't defined by isolation. Throughout history, we've grown by connecting with different cultures, ideas, and perspectives. This is just the next step, connection across the stars. As the meeting continued, ships from 3 other Confederation species entered Earth orbit, bringing observers interested in the unexpected success of the voluntary program. What had begun as forced unions had evolved into something more profound, a model for how different beings could share consciousness without losing identity, creating connections that bridged the vast differences between stars.